What's poppin', people? Welcome back to the Even Stronger podcast, brought to you by 2K Sports, 2K Games, and WWE 2K23. And joining me on today's episode, I'm afraid I got some bad news. The leader of the Nexus, former Intercontinental Champion, and the lead color analyst for Monday Night Raw. It's Wade Barrett, people. What's going on, Wade? How you doing?
What's up, Kaz? That was a great introduction. Thank you very much. What an honor it is to be on the podcast with you. Thank you for having me on.
And to our returning to WWE video games as part of the Bad News U-Pack. You'll be a downloadable character as a part of the Legends roster on WWE 2K23. So, first question I gotta ask you, it's been a minute. How does it feel to be back in a WWE video game?
I ain't gonna lie, it feels great. I got back with WWE as a commentator in NXT about 3 years ago, and my immediate thought was, oh, this is awesome. They're gonna get me back in the video games. Then it didn't happen in 2020. It didn't happen in 2021. It didn't happen in 2022. I kind of gave up. And then I got word about 6 months ago, no, we're bringing you back. So last time I was in the game was 2016, and I kind of left the company under a bit of a dark cloud at the time. I wasn't enjoying myself in WWE, and I had to move on for a little while, but it's night and day now. I love being back. It's exciting. It's a great environment. I think the product is booming. The fans are happy. When does that ever happen? The fans are happy. And yeah, so to be back in the video game, that really is the cherry on top of the cake. So I'm thrilled to be back involved.
Well, you mentioned it, right? You were gone for a little bit, and, you know, people always say distance makes the heart grow fonder. You kind of came in, you got to be a commentator for NXT. How has commentary helped you see sports entertainment and professional wrestling differently since you left in 2016?
I decided I was going to be a professional wrestler around about 2000. So I'd been a massive fan. Something changed in my mind then when I decided, no, I'm going to be a wrestler. But something I lost through that process of wanting to become a wrestler, I kind of lost my fandom of it. I started analyzing everything. I started seeing everything as a competition. If I saw another wrestler have a great match, I would be angry with myself because I'd know this guy's better than me. I'm not enjoying watching this guy be better than me. I've got to step my game up. And I would say for the longest time, I really stopped being a fan of WWE and sports entertainment while I was an in-ring guy. So anyway, it all came to a head, as you mentioned, 2016. I disappeared for a while. I needed to kind of regrow a soul again. I think I've been beaten up for too long and I'd become miserable. But the cool thing about commentary is I really get to be just an unabashed fan once again. Unadulterated fandom of what we're watching, and I hope it comes across in the commentary. I promise you, Michael Cole and I are the two biggest fans in the building. We got the best seats in the house, and we can enjoy everything for what it is without having that competitive edge I had before of wanting this guy's spot or wanting to be able to compete at this level that this guy's competing. I can just enjoy it for what it is now, and I have no real horse in the race, so to speak, anymore. So yeah, that's what I've gained by being a commentator, is just I've gained my fandom back.
And also, you don't gotta no back bumps either, right?
Yeah,
like
that helps. I ain't gonna lie. No surgeries on the horizon. I'm feeling pretty good. And now, of course, this is when people start messaging me, hey, when you getting back in the ring? When you Gunther? How about Gunther? The hell no. I ain't getting in the ring with Gunther. I promise you that much.
Gunther, a man with one purpose, to prove the math sacred.
Well, maybe not in real life, but now if you pick up WWE 2K23, you can relive Wade Barrett versus Gunther, or any sort of dream match you have in mind for WWE 2K23. But when I saw that you were about to be a part of this game, we saw the fresh-faced Wade Barrett, not the grizzled, veteran, bearded, bad news Barrett that we've sort of grown to
Wrinkly, you can say it. Wrinkly, the wrinkly guy, right?
You said wrinkly, not me. You said it. But it was fresh-faced Wade Barrett from the Nexus era that's going to be in this game. When you see that picture of yourself, what runs through your mind? Because I have plenty of thoughts about that entire era and just what the future held for not just you, but what NXT and everything sort of turned into when you see that picture. But when you see it, what kind of runs through your mind?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I'll get it out the way now. I wish I had the brain I had now on the young body and potential I had back then, because I would have done things a little differently. I would have handled certain political situations differently, things that were completely beyond the realm of my comprehension in 2010. I wasn't able to understand how the industry worked behind the scenes. But really, the other side of that is the positive side, where you've got to remember at that point in my career, so that would have been 2010, I'd probably been training at least to be a wrestler for about 7 years at that point, and I'd been all over Europe at that point. Obviously come over to the US, and I'd been in the developmental systems in Ohio Valley Wrestling and Florida Championship Wrestling, getting paid very little and making big sacrifices to try and chase this dream. So the really cool thing about the era that you see, this young, fresh-faced Wade Barrett, that was the point where I knew that no matter what happened from there, all my sacrifices had been worth it. I'd made it to WWE, I'd made it to the pay-per-views, I'd made it to Raw and SmackDown. I was a focal point of the show in 2010. So really it felt like a big weight lifted off my shoulders, that I wasn't going to have to go back to the UK with my tail in between my legs, having failed to make it and have to go back to my regular old job and beg them for my job back. And I think that would have haunted me for life. So there was a massive feeling of achievement and relief that I got to that point in 2010. And this is the character you get to play with now on WWE 2K23.
You mentioned that, you didn't really necessarily know what success was at that point. You didn't want to go back to the UK and have to beg for your job back. But fast forward, with hindsight being 2020, the Nexus really broke open the doors for young, fresh-faced guys with an absolute sort of spot, I would say, to be a new person and break out on the scene on the main roster. I mean, Nexus obviously begat NXT, and now NXT is its own third brand that lives on its own, and you are basically, the embryo of what created the third brand in wrestling and sports entertainment. Talk to me a little bit about how that sort of feels about being, the original leader of Nexus, that first face of a new generation of wrestlers coming in and making a name for themselves by any means necessary.
Yeah, I think there was probably an era from about 2002 until about 2009, 2010, where I think the show got stale because it was the same kind of 7 or 8 top guys at the time who'd been running the show for the duration of that. So I think the company was starting to realize, look, some of these guys that we've had holding this down for years now, they're starting to get aged out. We really, really need fresh stars because the next 10 years are not looking good unless we start building them now. So I was kind of lucky that I was along that wave. Sheamus is another one who separately came up around that time. Drew McIntyre, we all got hired on the same day, and we're pretty close. So I contrast and compare myself with those two regularly. But we got caught up in this wave of, look, we need new talent, we need new guys, we need fresh stars. So I was fortunate that my rise through the developmental ranks came at that time, which meant the company was actively looking for new stars. And you're right, Nexus for us, for all of us who were in the group, was just a mind-blowing experience. It's something that, even though I think it died prematurely, it's something that people still want to talk to me about this day. It probably only lasted 6 months, really, Nexus, but people still to this day want to talk about the time we ripped up the ring, the time we attacked John Cena, the time we beat up Vince McMahon and ran the company. Really exciting times for us and completely changed the trajectory of my life. So to have a massive impact on your debut like that, you can't really ask for too much more as a young up-and-coming star. And I hope that helped show the company, hey, there's a way forward here to debut dominant young groups of stars, which we saw with The Shield a few years later, and they knocked it out of the park. So maybe we were the catalyst for some of that.
I'd love to dive in a little bit because you mentioned John Cena, that huge debut. One of my favorite moments in Raw history, when there was just literally no commentary, just chaos, just huge, and the guys just completely wearing out John Cena. And he's a huge part of WWE 2K23. He's obviously the cover star and also the showcase player in this video game. Describe to me the relationship you guys have had over the years.
Yeah, it was massive for us as new guys coming in to get to attack the heart and soul of the industry at that point. This was the guy. This was the Hulk Hogan. This was the Rock. This was the Stone Cold Steve Austin of that time. So for us to come in and obliterate him and basically run with him on TV programming for the next 6 months was massive. And it took us to a place where we could not possibly have got to on our own as new guys.
UK flag bearer. No bad news over here. You can catch him every week on Monday Night Raw, and you can catch him as part of the Bad News You Pack on WWE 2K23 as a playable character. It is my honor to have Wade Barrett on the podcast today. Thank you so much for kicking it with me, and continue to do what you do, man. It's great to hear you every week.
Thank you, Kaz. It's been fun. Thanks for having me on the show. We'll have to do it again sometime.